Howdy guys, I am Troubadour Dork, and we're finally back at it again with another Warhammer 40k review. I took my time with it, but it's finally here, and without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. Today, as you can clearly see, we are reviewing the Weirdboy for the Orcs, and the Weirdboy this is my own model. I really enjoyed painting it, making it. It's probably one of the models I'm most proud of. And yeah, I actually think this is an interesting review. It's going to be mostly reviewing how he plays in game rather than the actual paint job. I'll quickly go over the paint job, but it's mostly how he's going to perform in game. So without further ado, let's get into it. And here we have the Weirdboy stat line. The Weirdboy stat line, as you can see, it has a movement of 5 inches, a weapon skill of 3+, a ballistic skill of 5+, strength 5, toughness 4, wounds 4, attacks 3, leadership 6, and a save of 6+. Sorry if that was a little quick, but obviously you guys can see it on screen unless you're new to Warhammer, but if you're new to Warhammer this probably isn't the place to start, but oh well. The first thing I'm going to say is that save of 6+ makes the model instantly slightly shite. Forgive my language, but that save of 6+ is brutal. It means most things are going to be getting through, and you don't really need AP to harm this guy. You can use basic weaponry. He's not got an invuln save, so basically if he's getting shot at, he's going to die, especially he's only got toughness 4 and 4 wounds, so yeah, don't expect this guy to survive if you are stupid with his placement, or if you're unlucky enough to have him at the front line of your army and within their gunfire. Having said that, however, the strength of the Weirdboy is not in his stat line. The weapon he's carrying, the Weirdboy staff, it's only a melee weapon. It provides 2+ strength, AP -1, and D3 damage, meaning his attacks are going to be strength 7, armor piercing 1, and obviously doing averagely 2 wounds, but you don't ever want to rely on a D3 damage. This guy, not great in melee, but he'll kill a few things if they're in combat with him more likely. He's, you've got a little bit of a punch, but it's a little bit of spice, that's all it is, a little bit of flavour to his kit. In terms of the abilities, yes, here we go, Mob Rule and Daka Daka Daka. 2 of those, arguably useless. You're not going to use Daka 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 at all, he doesn't have any ranged weaponry. Mob Rule is basically useless. Here we go is going to help with his charges, but again he's probably not the best HQ for charges, so those abilities there, they're a bit mediocre, I'm not going to lie. But the strength in his abilities is the War Energy, but it could easily backfire. It's pretty much a double-edged sword. Basically, I'm going to summarise it, for the Orc boys that he has surrounding him, excluding Gretchens, that is, Orc models, my bad, not just boys, Orc models, he will get bonuses depending on how many are around him, going up to +3. That could be very dangerous because it means that his perils of the warp, which is where he's obviously going to do mortal wounds to himself, is highly increased. But that also means that he's going to be casting Smite on a Snake Eyes if you have the correct amount around him, meaning it's impossible for him to fail certain powers, so he's not going to be failing Smite, and he's not going to be failing some of his powers. We'll get to what those are in a second. His faction keywords are Orc and Clan, like everything, and to be honest, I think that Narklob, the Bad Moon's boss, nubsums the Weirdboy stat line perfectly. Weirdboy is alright, just don't stand too near him. And you know what, I entirely agree with that depiction there. Now, the Weirdboy has 6 psychic powers. He has Edbanger, Warpath, Da Jump, Fist of Gork, Da Crunch, and Roar of Mork. Now, out of these 6 powers, for how I play my Orcs personally, I find Da Jump is the most effective. What Da Jump does is it has a warp charge value of 7, and if manifested, a friendly Orc infantry unit within 12 inches of the Psyker, you can remove it from the battlefield and basically set it up 9 inches away from the enemy. So it makes a friendly unit deep strike essentially, but you can still have something deep strike that turn alongside it. So it's a really, really powerful power of the war, and genuinely, that on a squad of boys, or say a squad of knobs, something that's well kitted out, a lot of attacks, can be really scary for an opponent if they're not set up right, especially if you can get behind them or near their front line especially. And then honestly, after that, the rest of the Weirdboy's powers aren't the best. I don't like Warpath, it's a -1 leadership, which against the opponents you're going to be fighting it, and normally I find in Warhammer 40k, leadership isn't as effective as it was in the previous generations. Like, in this edition, it's not been as effective, apart from against Orcs, but even Orcs have their own counter to it. So yeah, definitely not a good option. The only other power, because I'm not going to go through each one because most of them are useless, but the only other decent power is Fist of Gork, which adds 2 strengths, 2 strengths, 2 strength, and 2 attacks to a leader of choice. Now, in an army based around fast attack, if that's the kind of orcs that you play, like an Evil Sun's fast attack army, that kind of thing, it would be very useful to get that on one of your key models that are going to be going in, like a HQ, which is going to get 2 plus strength and 2 attacks, making them strength 10 attacks normally, or at least like strength 12 attacks, and then getting an extra 2 with that amount of power, that's, you know, vehicle killing, but you've got to get there first, and obviously normally they get shot down without good placement, if they don't have above 10 wounds, that is. If they have below 10 wounds, suddenly that's becoming a very good power. But overall, I'd say the jump and smite is the best loadout option you're going to have for an infantry orc based army. One more major thing to talk about is the Stratagem Warphead. Warphead costs 1 command point, and it says, use this stratagem before the battle begins. Select a Weirdboy model from your army to become a Warphead. This model knows 1 additional psychic power from the power of the War, and can attempt to manifest 1 additional psychic power in each of your psychic phases. Now, if you're running an army which has a bit of fast attack in and infantry, so a lot of boys, but also you have quite a lot of like Megatrex scrap jets and custom booster blasters, that sort of thing, this could be very, very useful, because then you can take like Fist of Gork, and you can take the jump and no smite. And when you have all 3 of those available, and you say you have 2 Weirdboys casting more than like 1 psychic power a turn, that could, you know, get quite deadly. So definitely that makes the model slightly better, and for the points you're paying, yes, it's for 1 command point, I'd say it's a decent stratagem to consider. So, the big question, what do I rank it out of 10? Well, to answer this question, I need to look at the points value. Points he costs, 62 points. For 62 points, I think he is a solid 6 out of 10 model. Now, the reason that might seem a little harsh is simply because of how squishy he is. 62 points for something with a 6-up save, no invuln. It's a lot, bearing in mind that he can't really attack very well either. He's not going to be doing much damage. He's essentially there in an orc infantry army to get boys across the field, or knobs, or something a bit more elitist, or, you know, something with a lot of attacks. And because he's so squishy, I just think it's a bit of a risk, and there are better HQ options. But having said that, the Warphead stratagem, the jump, combined with his decent melee output, I think he's a solid 6 out of 10 model. For 62 points, would recommend in an orc infantry based army. The very last thing I'm going to show to you guys is my paint job and what my Weirdboy looks like. I'm pretty proud of him. I think he's one of my better paint jobs. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot better painted Weirdboys out there. I'll show one now. I'm pretty happy with him. I've used Evil Sun's Red because I am an Evil Sun's Orc army, because I like the movement bonuses. I've used my Crag Blue for his cape. I've used Lead Belcher and Runefang Steel for the metal output. My friends criticise me saying I used a little bit too much metal here, but you know what? I'm a fan of it. But no, I do see their point. It is very metallic, but you know, I like the steampunk look anyway. The face, I used a non-oil wash along with a lot of the skin. I'm pretty happy with it. And yeah, you guys tell me if you like the paint job and where I could improve in the future, I guess, because that's definitely not my forte.